I said, so which one's my guy? This one, the middle one, who was bleeding out. I said, that doesn't look anything like Abu Zubaydah. We had a 6-year-old passport photo of Abu Zubaydah. He was a young, thin, good-looking, short beard and mustache, closely trimmed.
How old?
He was 24, maybe.
Okay.
In this picture.
Okay.
22.
Okay.
I said, this guy, he doesn't look anything like the picture. This guy was fat, clean-shaven, crazy Albert Einstein hair going every direction. So I called the targeting analyst and I said, listen, it's chaos here. The Pakistanis shot a bunch of guys. They say we got him, but this guy doesn't look anything like Abu Zubaydah, and I don't know what to do. And he said, do a retinal scan, right? Take a picture of his eye, email it to me, and I'll run a retinal scan. So I knelt down over him and I shouted, Iftah hayunik, open your eyes, Iftah hayunik. But his eyes were rolled back in his head. I could just see the whites of his eyes. I couldn't see anything. He was dying. And I said, his eyes are rolled back in his head. I can't see anything. And he said, give me a picture of his ear. I didn't know until that night that no two people on earth have the same ears. They're like fingerprints.
Huh.
Yeah. So I took a picture of his ear. Of course, these are the days when phones didn't have cameras. So I took a picture. I plugged the camera into the phone. I sent the picture to the analyst. He sends it to CIA headquarters. Then they respond, it's him. So I said to my colleague, I said, listen, he's going to die. We got to get him to a hospital. So we threw him into the back of this filthy Toyota pickup truck. Little tiny pickup truck called a Toyota Cherry. There he is. The picture right there on the right in the center. That one.
Yeah.
Yep. That's the passport photo that we had.
Okay. And he was 6 years older than that when you captured him.
Yes, and 50 pounds heavier.
Why does he get the eye patch in that photo?
Yeah, the eye patch.
Is that a result of torture? Advanced interrogation? Enhanced interrogation?
When he was fighting the Soviets, he got a shrapnel wound in his eye, and he was blinded in one eye.
Okay.
And then, as part of his torture, we drugged him one day, and we took his eyeball out.
Ugh.
Which is a human rights violation. It's a crime against humanity. We didn't even ask him. We didn't even tell him. They just gassed him. And then when he woke up, he had no eyeball. So they gave him a...
what he was under.
Yeah.
Holy shit.
So they gave him a prosthetic eyeball that he has steadfastly refused to wear because he said that we stole his eye. And so he insists on wearing the patch.
The patch looks pretty cool, though.
It does actually look pretty cool.
So you were standing over this guy right here in the middle of the street at 2 a.m. while he was dying, bleeding out.
Yeah. We rushed him to Faisalabad Hospital, the worst place I've ever been in my life. This hospital, the windows are open, the doors are open, there are like dogs and cats just walking up and down the halls. There are clouds of mosquitoes feasting on people's open wounds. Oh. It was disgusting. And then they had this bar of Irish Spring soap with needles coming out of it. And if you needed a shot, they'd take one of the syringes, they'd give you your shot, and then stick it back in the bar of soap. So here we are. There are like 6 Americans dressed as Pakistanis with an Arab who's bleeding to death. We take him into the emergency room, and I said to the doctor, I said, you've got to patch him up. My orders were to take him alive. And the guy's like looking at me like, what? What's going on? And we were like, come on, let's go. So they rush him into surgery. And the rest of us just sat down to wait.
How long did the surgery take?
Well, that was kind of a problem. Word got around the Al-Qaeda community that we had gotten him. And so they started driving by the hospital and just opening fire on the hospital. And we're diving down on the ground.
While he's in the middle of surgery?
Because they knew we were in there with him.
Holy shit.
I said to the colonel, if they realize how lightly armed we are, we're dead. Can you get a helicopter in here? And he said, I think so. So he makes a couple of calls. 20 minutes later, this helicopter lands in the parking lot. I put my shirt up over my mouth like this. I walked into the operating room and I said, Doc, wrap it up. We got to go. So they sew him closed. We wheel him out onto the parking lot and put him on the helicopter. And we flew to a Pakistani military base about 50 miles away. Now, the base was kind of funny. It had a small, not really a hospital so much. It was like a clinic, like a surgical clinic. It had 8 beds. It was in a circle. And the nurse's station was the hub of the wheel. And then 8 beds were the spokes, right? And I noticed there was a chart that had each patient's name and why he was in there. And every one of the patients was in there for an attempted suicide, which was nuts to me. But they had this bed open, 2 beds open. And so we took him in. They took him straight into surgery. So at one point, the doctor came out and he said to me, it was funny because he didn't know who the prisoner was. He didn't know who I was. But this intelligence colonel said, these are VIPs. You got to do what they say. So he comes out and he's like, look, I don't know what this is about, but I'm going to tell you, I have never seen wounds so severe where the patient lived. So you may want to tell your people that this is probably not going to be a good outcome. So I called the targeting analyst, and he called headquarters, and they were like, do what you can. So while he was in surgery, an ambulance arrived with the bodyguard who had been shot through the leg. And he's screaming, he's crying. And so, I've already been up 24 hours at this point. And my orders, and these were directly from George Tenet, the CIA director, 24/7 CIA eyes on, he said. Those were his exact words. 24/7 CIA's eyes on. Don't let the fucking FBI sit there and take over. He's our prisoner, not the FBI's prisoner. While he's in surgery, I'm so sleepy already. I decide to walk around this little clinic, and I hear the guy screaming and crying in the other room. So I went over to him and I said, Kif halak, how are you? And he's crying. He goes, Alhamdulillah, glory to God. And I said, yeah, you don't look so good. And he says, are you American? And I said, yeah, we captured you. And he says, the Pakistanis, the dogs, they captured me and then they held me down and then they put an AK-47 on my leg and they shot me. And I said, that's not what I heard. I heard you were jumping from the roof of the house to the roof of the next door house to escape. And he stops crying and he says to me, look at me. I am 150 kilos. I cannot jump from the roof. He's like 330 pounds.
Yeah.
And I pull the sheet back. I'm going to find the pictures and show you. I pull the sheet back, and he is not just soaked in blood, but there is a perfect burn mark, like the size of a dinner plate, around his leg. They held that AK right on his skin and pulled the trigger. So the doctor told me we're going to have to amputate the leg. And I said, well, that's unfortunate. They ended up saving the leg, but the guy's never going to walk normally again.
Oh my God.
Yeah, it was pretty awful.
And it was the Pakistani soldiers that did that?
Yeah, because the guy pissed them off. He wouldn't give up, so they shot him.
God.
It was bad. It was bad.
So they did not amputate his leg.
They did not amputate his leg.
But I'm sure it completely shattered his femur.
Oh my God, the damage! It was disgusting. I'm looking for these pictures while I'm talking to you, and
It's amazing he didn't bleed out.
It was incredible.
Well, I mean, Abu Zubaydah as well. Obviously.
And speaking of Abu Zubaydah not bleeding out, when he came out of surgery, I was really, really tired. And so I was afraid I was going to fall asleep. And I'm thinking, is the doctor secretly Al-Qaeda? Maybe the doctor's going to break him out. Or maybe he's not as badly wounded as I think he is, and I'm going to fall asleep, and then he's going to get up and run away. So I tore a sheet into strips, and I tied him to the bed by the wrists and the ankles. He was bleeding so profusely.
This was after surgery?
After surgery.
Okay.
He was bleeding so profusely that it was actually pooling under the bed.
Ugh.
I've said before, it was like a scene from a horror movie. I've never seen anything like it in my life. He was soaked in blood. We had blood all over us. It's in this giant puddle underneath the bed. So they had this pump. I had never seen anything like this before. You know how they have like blood just dripping into your arm? Mm-hmm. Well, they attached a pump to it so it's forcing the blood into your arm like at this greatly accelerated rate because he was bleeding so badly that they had to replace the blood as quickly as possible.
To keep him alive.
Yeah, just to keep him alive. And he was in a coma, and the doctor's like, I don't think he's going to make it. So I sat there with my arms crossed at the foot of his bed, and I just stared at him. And I put the ceiling fans on full blast to make it like slightly uncomfortable so that I wouldn't fall asleep. Mm-hmm. And then during the night, I called a buddy of mine at the safe house, and I said, man, would you do me a favor? I said, I'm friggin' starving, first of all. I said, there's
about to eat Abu Zubaydah.
I know, right? I'm starving. And I said, I'm really dirty. I smell really bad. I've got a clean shirt and a pair of underwear. Can you bring them to the hospital from the safe house? So a couple hours later, he comes. He's got like these, those little cheese crackers and peanut butter crackers in that pack. He had a couple of those. He had a thing of orange juice. And there was a red T-shirt that my kids had bought me for Christmas with SpongeBob SquarePants on it, like the decal, And he gave me my clean underwear. So I got changed. And then the next day, he started to stir just a little bit. And so I stood up at the foot of his bed and I was looking down on him. And I say in my... I did it again.
It's all right.
Sorry.
I think you're good.
I say in my first book, you could tell the exact instant that he realized, oh my God, the Americans have me. Because he was hooked up to all these machines and his heart rate is 110, right? And when he opens his eyes, he doesn't look at my face. He looks at SpongeBob. And his heart rate went to 220. And the machine starts going beep, 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 beep. And then you hear code blue, Bay 1, code blue. And then they rush in and they shock him, clear. I had never seen this before except on TV, right? Clear, they shock him. And then they give him this shot of Demerol that they put right into the drip. And then he was out again.
That poor bastard woke up and saw SpongeBob for the first time after being blown away by an AK-47.
Yeah. It was too much for him. So he was out for another 6 or 8 hours.
He saw SpongeBob and he knew he was fucked.
He knew he was fucked. It was over. Finally, he opens his eyes. And again, I've got him tied to the bed by the wrists and the ankles. So he's laying there like this. And he opens his eyes. And he goes like this, like motioning for me to come near him. So I go right next to him, like I put my ear right next to his mouth, and I moved his oxygen mask off to the side. And I said, Shuismek, what is your name? And he shook his head. So I said again, Shuismek. And he said to me in English, I will not speak to you in God's language.
Huh.
Mm-hmm. And I said, that's okay, Abu Zubaydah, we know who you are. And he starts crying and he says, please, brother, kill me. Take the pillow and kill me. And I said, nobody's going to kill you. We've been looking for you for a long time. He said, what's going to happen to me? And I said, honestly, I don't know. But I'm going to give you some advice. I'm the nicest guy that you're going to meet in this experience. My colleagues, they're not nice like I am. So if there's one thing that you do, it's that you have to cooperate.